Ever wonder how a simple no to your HOA could turn your quiet suburban life into a full-blown fraud investigation? What if the woman everyone called the community guardian was actually forging documents to steal your home right from under you? And how does it feel when the same Karen who preached neighborly trust ends up in handcuffs while the whole block watches her empire crumble? Picture this. I'm Jake Harlan, 42 cybersecurity guy who finally scraped together enough for the American dream in Cedar Grove Estates. White picket fences gleaming like they were photoshopped, kids on bikes, that big wooden sign at the entrance promising a haven of harmony. Yeah, right. As you bowed to the almighty HOA, I moved in with my golden retriever Max. A fresh start after years of staring at screens till my eyes burned. No drama, just me, my workbench in the garage, and the sweet silence of suburbia. Or so I thought. First HOA meeting, she glides in like royalty. Karen Whitaker, president in her signature neon pink blazer that screamed, "I own this cul-de-sac." Clipboard in one manicured hand, smile sharp enough to slice bread. She's all we're family here in Cedar Grove, darlings. Together we keep our little paradise perfect. The room nods like trained seals. I sit in the back, nodding politely, thinking, keep your head down, Jake. You just want peace. For fresh meat who doesn't kiss the ring. 3 months later the emails start. Mr. Trash bin lingered curbside for 12 whole minutes post-pickup. Eyesore to the community. 12 minutes. I was still hosing it out. 1.8 inches over code, dear. I measured, it was 1.6. Next, my garage tool rack. Aesthetic violation. I didn't fight. Just smiled, saved every ridiculous message in a folder labeled Karen's Greatest Hits. Lesson 1 in Suburbia. Always document, because these people treat rules like their personal religion. Then came her masterpiece, the Emergency Access Key Initiative. Karen stands at the podium during the next meeting, voice dripping honey over broken glass. Think of the children, the elderly. A copy of every homeowner's house key in the secure HOA vault, just in case of fire, flood, or heart attack. It's about trust, about unity. The crowd murmurs approval like it's the Sermon on the Mount. But I read the CC and RS cover to cover the night before. Not one word about mandatory keys. Zero. That evening, calm and professional. Karen, I appreciate the spirit, but the documents don't require it. I value my privacy. Her reply hit my inbox in 17 minutes flat. How disappointing, Jake. Refusing community safety initiatives reflects poorly on your commitment. The board will discuss. Translation: war declared. From then on I was public enemy number 1. The monthly newsletter, printed on glossy paper like a luxury magazine, ran an anonymous community safety alert. Certain residents are prioritizing personal convenience over neighborly protection. No names, but everyone knew. Mrs. the street, who used to bring me cookies, suddenly crossed to the other side of the road when she saw me. Why won't you share your key, Jake? What are you hiding in there? Some dad asked at the mailbox, half joking but eyes serious. I laughed it off. Privacy isn't a crime, folks. Check the rules yourself. But inside I was seething. This wasn't about keys or safety. It was control, pure petty pink blazer control. Karen needed everyone scared enough to obey without question. She showed up at my door a week later, 2 bored lackeys trailing like ducklings. Clipboard raised like a shield. Act. Compliance is mandatory for the good of Cedar Grove. Her smile never reached her eyes. I stood firm in my doorway, Max growling softly behind me. No, Karen, not happening. The and RS say otherwise. Her jaw tightened so hard I heard it click. You're making this unpleasant for everyone. People who don't cooperate often find Cedar Grove unsuitable. The threat hung there like cheap perfume. She spun on her heel, blazer flapping, muttering something about recalcitrant elements. That night I spread every HOA paper across my kitchen table like a conspiracy board. And there it was, an updated amendment requiring keys, slipped into the packet last month. Different font. A notary stamp from a woman who'd been dead 2 years. Karen hadn't bent the rules. forged them in her little home office, probably cackling while sipping Chardonnay. The fine started rolling in like clockwork. $150 a week for non-compliance. She taped the first notice to my door like a wanted poster. I fired back a certified letter. These are unenforceable. Any further action will be treated as harassment. Her response: a new section in the newsletter, ongoing safety risks in our paradise. Cars slowed past my house. Phones came out. Guy in an HOA polo snapping pics of my backyard. When I stepped out, he bolted to a waiting SUV with no plates. Reconnaissance case, turning the whole block into her personal jury. Kept climbing. Garden hose not coiled artistically, one rogue dandelion in the lawn. Each letter demanded an immediate inspection. I replied the same every time. No entry without a warrant. She doubled down, sending compliance officers in matching polos who didn't even have real badges. I recorded every visit on my security cams, timestamps crisp as evidence in a courtroom drama. My binder grew thicker than a phone book, screenshots, emails, video clips, county records. I wasn't the hothead yelling at meetings. I was the quiet guy in the shadows waiting. Because people like Karen always overplay their hand. Then came the forged lien. Office with my signature, looking like a drunk toddler traced it. Claimed I owed $12,000 in back fines and the HOA could place a lien on my property. The county flagged it instantly, dead notary again. But Karen didn't stop. The cops claimed I was squatting in her house using forged deeds. I remember opening my front door that Tuesday to two squad cars lighting up my yard like a bad 4th of July, half the neighborhood rubbernecking from their lawns. And there she was, center stage in the driveway, clipboard waving, screaming at the officers like they worked for her. He refuses to vacate. Look at the documents, arrest him. My stomach dropped, but I was ready. Upstairs, my real deed and tax records in hand. The lead cop looked exhausted already. Karen kept ranting. He's a danger to our community values. While I handed over my binder, they compared signatures, watched my footage of her officers, saw the forged stamp. The younger officer actually chuckled under his breath. Ma'am, filing fake papers doesn't make them real. Refusing an HOA key isn't a crime. Karen's face went from righteous fury to cracked porcelain in seconds. She sputtered. But the board approved. The lead cut her off. We'll be filing a report on this. They left without touching me. Karen stood there clutching that clipboard like it was her last breath of power, pink blazer suddenly looking ridiculous under the flashing lights. The neighbors who'd been whispering started to drift away, awkward silence settling like fog. But I knew we weren't done. And they lose face. They explode. The next days were pure psychological warfare dressed up as neighborly concern. Tire tracks carved through my front lawn overnight. Anonymous emails accused me of everything from unsightly leaf in gutter to hairline crack in driveway that could lower property values for everyone. Each came with the same demand: mandatory inspection or face seizure proceedings. I replied the same. Step on my property without permission and we'll talk in court. Karen sent another wave of fake officers who didn't even bother with fake IDs this time. I filmed it all, forwarded everything to my lawyer and the county investigator who'd flagged the lien. The investigator, Morales, sharp guy with zero patience for suburban nonsense, met me at a coffee shop off the main road. He flipped through my binder, eyebrows climbing. This isn't HOA drama, Jake. This is straight-up criminal forgery, fraud, attempted theft of property. I'm escalating. Relief hit me like cold water, but I still double-checked every lock. Then the transition plan slid under my door. 3 homemade pages in Karen's looping cursive explaining how the HOA would peacefully reclaim my home for a more cooperative member, change the locks, and list it on MLS. Attached? Interior photos of my living room, my kitchen, even Max's dog bed. Someone had broken in while I was at work. The draft listing price: $479,000. A steal apparently for organized crime wrapped in pastel rules. I stopped sleeping. 7. Evidence backed up to 3 clouds. Every creak in the house made me grab the baseball bat I kept by the bed. But Morales moved fast. He rolled up just as Karen was pounding on my door again, voice shaking with rage. "You think you can defy the community and win? I built this neighborhood." She froze when the deputies stepped out. Tried to run in those sensible heels. They cut her off right there on my lawn, cuffs clicking like the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The arrest sent shockwaves through Cedar Grove. Board members resigned overnight. Emergency Zoom calls turned into therapy sessions. Neighbors who'd ghosted me started showing up on my porch with awkward casseroles and apologies. "Mrs. We should have asked questions instead of believing her stories, Jake. She made it sound like you were the problem." The retired colonel 2 doors down shook my hand so hard it hurt. "Son, you stood up when the rest of us were too chicken shit. People like her only stop when somebody pushes back hard." The new interim board promised transparency reforms and resident input, but their faces said it all. They'd let Karen run wild because questioning her felt too risky. Easier to nod along than risk the pink blazer wrath. Weeks later in court, Karen looked nothing like the queen of Cedar Grove. Gray blazer, no clipboard, eyes darting like a cornered animal. The judge read the charges slow and deliberate. Forgery, fraud, false police report, conspiracy to commit unlawful eviction, impersonation of authority, and a laundry list that made even the bailiff raise an eyebrow. I took the stand, laid out the timeline without raising my voice. Every email, every fake stamp, every break-in photo. The courtroom was dead quiet except for Karen's lawyer whispering frantically. When the judge leaned in, voice like gravel, "You tried to steal a man's home with lies and fake paperwork. You expect this court to call that protecting the community?" Karen broke. Sobbed about how she was just trying to keep standards high, but the tears looked as fake as her notary stamps. The verdict came down hard, guilty on all counts. No cheering from me, as the cuffs went on for real this time. Her empire of pink blazers and clipboards collapsed like a house of cards in a stiff breeze. I stood on my porch that evening, air finally clear, Max at my feet. Neighbors waved again. A 6-pack. The fear was gone, replaced by something quieter, satisfaction, sure, but mostly the realization that fragile little tyrants only thrive when good people stay silent. Here's the raw truth from someone who lived it. Document everything, question every community rule. That smells like control, and never hand over your rights just to keep the peace. Bullies and blazers hate one thing more than anything: someone who refuses to bend. Stand up early, stand up smart, and watch the Karen empire burn. Justice isn't loud. It's the quiet click of handcuffs when the mask finally slips.